Welcome to SHOWstudio. Head-to-Head Autumn-Winter 18 is now traveling to Milan. I'm Mimma Viglezio, and I'm here with the lovely Calum Knight.
Thanks for having me again.
Hi, Calum. So, Milan. Milan was marked by the Genius project, genius name, of Moncler. First, we would like to say that some people left London earlier, and they probably didn't know what was going to happen in London that night, which was the Queen attending Richard Queen's show. So there was a little bit of a thing. Some missed the Moncler Genius event and some missed the Queen. But anyway, so between Queen and Genius, we traveled to Milan. We weren't there actually, but we would like to mention this quite futuristic event, which was rather interesting. So just to quickly summarize, Remo Ruffini of Moncler decided to do something that I thought was very clever, unite designers of totally different style and provenance and inspiration and even nationality to build 8 different collections for a very interesting business plan, which I think is very modern, which is dropping month after month the way the brand chooses the collection, and they call by number. So the first one is Pierpaolo Piccioli of Valentino fame. He designed an extraordinary collection of almost couture puffer jackets. Looks not only, it will probably look amazing on people, but it looks amazing on photograph, which is really clever. And then we're not going to mention them all also because it's very hard to remember them all, but we want to mention Craig Green, who did probably the most ahead futuristic version of it, and Simon Rocha, and an internal team that does the Grenoble collection of Moncler, and so on and so forth. Anyway, it was very interesting. It's interesting the name that actually come from this Adriano Goldsmith gentleman who launched the Genius Group a long time ago, probably 30 years ago, when Renzo Rosso of Diesel fame started producing denim. Actually, the Genius Group was to denim what Moncler is to puffer jacket. So it was denim by definition. And he teamed up with Renzo Rosso, and they together founded Diesel. So in a homage to this, Ruffini called his project the Genius Project.
I mean, and it's genius to call your project Genius.
And so when people don't know and they see on Instagram everybody #Genius, they think that everybody's judging the project Genius, which actually is called Genius, so it's quite genius.
I mean, there was such a buzz around it, and I mean, it was a weird day because I was at the Richard Quinn show, I wasn't here. So that all happened, and obviously it's about Milan, so I won't talk about it too much. But that was pretty fabulous, and also, very sadly, it was the day that Judy Blaine passed away, or that news was passed on, so it was already a very...
Was it the same day?
Same day. And then this happened, so it was kind of a series of events, and I remember this taking Instagram by storm. I don't normally have Instagram, but I had the SHOWstudio Instagram during Fashion Week, and I didn't understand it because it wasn't pre-communicated. I don't know how much was communicated.
Well, no, it wasn't pre-communicated, but people were invited and they went early because they knew it was important. I mean, and they knew about Simone and Craig Green, so especially the English press they couldn't miss it. And there was a big dinner. It was quite a big thing, but I think especially the way it was presented, you know, in this big warehouse.
I mean, the set design is fabulous.
In the building renamed the Genius Building, and you know.
I mean, I didn't get until the day after or 2 days after, so it was in the same building. I thought there were different shows happening around Milan. I really, you know, and I was so excited to try and figure out what was going on. I mean, I loved the product that I saw on Instagram and that I saw as it came out. Then to work out it all been happening, you know, imagine that atmosphere in there. You've been invited to Moncler Genius and you walk into this huge building, there's a video of it online and everyone's kind of walking around and you find all these different kind of immersive rooms.
Probably the 2 most photographed were Pierpaolo Piccioli, #1, and Craig, which I think was #4, for their
installation
being so photogenic, because Craig installation was genius in itself.
The huge,
absolutely incredible.
Not breathalators, they kind of expanded in and out with air out of the same fabric, kind of huge towerist things. I mean, God, those clothes are just, I don't understand how they come together and fall apart and how they are separate, but they're just gorgeous.
Were you there? Did you see them in real life?
No, I haven't seen them yet. But I mean, they're going to be in a museum. They're going to be in a Met exhibition.
What I think extraordinary is that these designers that were chosen very well, they really managed to put the puffer jacket, so the Moncler signature, on their own style.
Yeah.
Because Pierpaolo doing a sort of a couture gown in puffer jacket, and Craig, I mean, you recognize it from a million miles away, and so you do with Simone Rocha. I know the others, I mean, the Grenoble project, you know, the internal design, you can recognize the style of the brand, but I think that's fantastic because nobody took it away from Moncler, but they added, and so that's real collaboration, I think. And it's very rare that designers participate together. They usually want to be the only one.
Yeah.
And I think it's very interesting. Does it say something for the future?
I think it does. I think the funny thing to me about this is that they had Fragment as part of it, who kind of only exist through collaboration. They've done Louis Vuitton collaborations, they've done Off-White collaborations, I think. They've done Leaks collaborations. And actually, in all of it, I thought theirs was probably the weakest, sadly. Whereas, this is a brand that
Which is the weakest?
This Fragment collection. Not the weak. I mean, the product's nice, but it didn't. When you're next to Pierpaolo and Craig and Simone, who were adding their, expanding their vocabulary as a designer, whilst also adding stuff into the Genius. But it was just such a kind of moment.
I understand what you're saying. It was probably not as much photographed, but again, it's quite in tune with the brand it comes from. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
not that much.
I suppose I only know a Fragment through the lens of different designers because that is mainly how it exists, is through these collaborations, or at least that's its most high-profile thing. So I suppose when you see Fragment, you don't necessarily always know what it's always through someone else's eyes. It's a bit confusing. But I thought this definitely wasn't the strongest.
Because it's very Moncler, and that's what you see, through someone else's eyes. So it's very Moncler.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I think so. But then also I don't know I don't necessarily. I think why this collaboration also had the space to work is because Moncler, apart from the jackets, to me personally, I only know the jackets. So anything else they could do, it builds that vision.
There's a lot of
ski
gear, which is very expensive and very glamorous and beautiful, but. Yeah, Moncler is known for the puffer jacket, and they do whatever they can and very cleverly to keep the puffer jacket going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that moment. It's like, a few seasons ago, Burberry weren't the ones who made the trench coat cool again. It was Demno and all of that. There was a whole look back into the trench coat, but, Burberry obviously pushed that massively. So there's a massive puffer jacket revival happening, so why not own it and try and keep it going?
Yeah, that's interesting because, thanks to Balenciaga, the puffer jacket reappeared. Yeah. And actually, Moncler is like, hang on.
This is our thing.
This is our thing. We were there first. Yeah. I mean, I grew up with wanting a Moncler puffer jacket. It's been around for a long time.
But did you want it out of practicality or fashion or both?
Absolutely fashion. Absolutely fashion. I mean, but it has to be Moncler, and so I never had it because it was so outrageously expensive. Yeah. And then you have to grow up and be able to do it yourself. But anyway, so it was an interesting project. I think it's an interesting business model. As I said, I love the fact that I always thought that designers should be able to decide, to present a collection and then say, okay, this bit will drop in January, this bit in February. Not to drop everything at once.
Drop and this bikinis in December and puffer jackets
or
in August.
The whole collection. Then 4 months later, it's has seen. I can't watch it anymore because I know it by heart. This creates expectations, and I'm convinced that it's going to do well.
It's going to be everywhere. And there is a practicality to this.
Is it going to be in the street as well? Do you think most of it will be worn?
I think a lot of it will be worn, especially at Fashion Week. Fashion Pack will definitely buy it. I don't know how far it will go outside of that. I mean, the Craig Green Moncler stuff, because this is the third time he's collaborated with them, I believe. The first season he did, which is similar to which was lots of bound puffer jackets, so it was like big globular things, and then he had tape here. So it kind of went in and out like that. That got further, I skept toward them, I think. So then lots of other people started buying them, kind of people who don't normally necessarily engage in high-end fashion
Did he help Craig Green as a designer and as a brand?
Skepta or Moncler?
No, Moncler. I'm not saying financially, but to expand a little bit his signature.
I think
it's not big enough, right?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. I mean, Craig's been doing amazingly well. You know, he's just got Pity, obviously was announced last week.
Yes.
You know, he's doing amazingly well. I think it probably gives him more facets. And, you know, because he is very technical, but we always look at him as an aesthetic lens. But actually, when you wear his clothes, you can wear them 20 different ways, and it's very, very technical. So probably gave him a little bit of outreach into that section of people who actually want technical clothing that is amazing. I don't know. I'm sure it hasn't hindered it. Let's say that. I'm sure it's only been good for him.
Yeah,
and he deserves.
Because collaborations there for brands and designers, there are two ways. One is to get some money in, honestly, but another one is because often the brands that need you to collaborate with them for the cool factor, they have huge investment at their disposal. They have big advertising budget, big PR budget, and you know, small brands, they can't advertise, they can't do so. I don't think Craig Green needs Moncler, but it could help him for his awareness.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been nothing but good.
Shall we move on?
Yes.
I would like to talk about Ferragamo. So Salvatore Ferragamo, celebrating 90 years, finally stood out. So as we all know, Ferragamo is based, first of all, a shoe brand. Last year, they hired the great Paul Andrew of Paul Andrew fame to redesign their shoe. And then this season, they decided to give him the creative direction for women's. Yeah. And as Paul said, this is a shoe brand, so I started from the bottom up. The first thing that he did very well is that he teamed up and not went against the men's designer, Guillaume Mayand, and he said, let's do it together.
Yeah, and they did all that.
And it shows, because when you put men and women on the catwalk, if you don't work together, it
is two different collections, and one is
a different collection. He also went back into the archive and took a lot of prints coming from their collection of scarves, and then the
logo as well.
Exactly, he reworked the logo, but then. And that's what I thought was very striking. He managed to put on the catwalk something so refined, so modern, so relevant, and so Ferragamo. Yeah. We don't know what Ferragamo is because it's been so scattered, different designer, family member, but yet, you know, it's a 19-year-old brand, leather goods, whatever. You imagine the Loewe of Italy or the Hermes of Italy.
Yeah, that's what they're being called.
Spot on. He nailed it.
It's really beautiful. It's very, it's very aspirational.
It's very aspirational.
As a young,
it's yummy.
It's luxurious. It's like the layers on it. I mean, even the collars. Some of the shirts have double collars and then a collar pin through them, and just even those little details like. You can probably go buy the collar pin for £100 and layer two shirts up, and you can emulate it.
Yeah, and I also like that he worked on quite classic silhouettes. So the suit, the tailoring, the shirt, the shirt dress. And he
redefined the brand pillars or the brand products, didn't he? It was 7.
Totally did.
Yeah.
But then also he used those colors that also he found in the archives. And I was reading somewhere that he said, it's not simple, you can't call it blue. At Ferragamo there are 50 different type of blues and they all have a name.
Yeah.
So now he has to learn and mention it. Yeah, exactly. But I love that background, that beautiful, warm background. And
I mean, look at it with the red looks. It just on screen.
It's fantastic.
So beautiful.
And so, I mean, what I would like to say is that one hopes that they will let him work because I don't know if you know, but there's still Wanda Ferragamo, who's the widow of Mr. Salvatore, who's the matriarch of the family. She's in her 90s. She's got children and now grandchildren that are the age of working in the brand, and they still meet every Monday and discuss everything. So that's why they had such a turnover of designer and creative directors, because actually they were not really let work. They were not really free. And so, I mean, looking at this, I think maybe they understood that it was now or never. And it feels like they let him do things. But will they give him time to do it even better and to make it commercial? And
I mean, the reaction was so great. You'd think they'll be okay. They will give him time.
Press reaction. We don't know about
sales, but we shall. I mean, that was only with time. But I mean, one thing I did think was quite interesting about this is I was obviously doing my research, so I knew we might be speaking about it.
Yeah.
And I went and read on GQ on a review of the menswear, only the menswear, not the show, because the GQ is men's. And they were saying that they always, when in all the fittings, they had a man and a woman, and anything that didn't work on a man, they were trying a woman, and vice versa. So everything went
for this collection.
For this collection. However, on GQ, they didn't upload any of the women's. They only uploaded the men's. So it was like half of the collection, but you didn't have it mixed in. And it actually, unfortunately, did look a bit weaker. They bring each other up, and they need to, in my eyes...
Interesting. You think also the women without the men will...
I haven't seen it. I don't know if it will. I think just the excitement of the women's wear transferred off onto the men's wear and gave it this kind of elevated view, whereas if you actually see it alone, which is my worry about the sales, is that when it's in a men's side of the store...
Well, that's where you need a genius merchandiser as the one that Gucci had. I mean, you need to put it in the store in the right way, with the right display, the right quantities, the right colors. And also, I think this collection could go into the store the way it is. As it is, you know, and it could translate perfectly into a expensive, I guess, but beautifully, because they need people to go into their stores.
Yeah.
And I guess the shoe collection of the past year already brought people back.
Yeah.
But you know, they're doing fashion now, so maybe they want to sell some of those fantastic leather coats. But
out of interest, I know I've spoken about it a bit because it's women's wear, and obviously I'm not buying it for myself, or actually for anyone, but I can't afford it. But where do you see this woman? Because I have my ideas of where you might encounter the Ferragamo woman, or that they're presenting. Where do you see these clothes existing? Do you wear them to a dinner party? Do you wear them for, or do you wear them every day? I don't know if we were showing our
audience, but that look with the jodhpur and the shirt and the blazer, I would wear it to come here. Yes, I think, I mean, tailor is back. You wear jackets all the time. Well, I mean, I think it's good because there's day and cocktail, and there's no gowns and stuff like that.
There's the slit arms, which are gorgeous, but you could wear them on a summer's day. That's what I thought, but then suddenly, you know, I was questioning myself, being like, is that what a woman wants to wear into the office, or do they want something now that...
It's a mature woman, it's not a young girl. I mean, maybe a young girl wants to be more...
Maybe they'll wear the scarf prints.
I don't even think will be, I mean, the price of I mean, when we compare it to Hermes, or I think that's what Bottega Veneta should do, but that's a different discussion. You know, when you compare it to those brands, you're not talking about the cool East London or, you know, Brooklyn brands. It's the establishment, and it's women, you know, there's plenty of women, mature or, you know, that need... or they want to, or they want to wear classic stuff. This is perfect. It's like relaunching it. It's relevant.
Yeah. I mean, the branding, the reappropriation of the Ferragamo logo, and the horse. Is it a horse bit? I think it's.
Yeah. Well, the horse bit is a Gucci one, but it comes from the same kind of
idea. It's so well done.
It's on the belts.
It's on the belts, and I think it's closures on the shoes.
But I mean, those boots. I mean, do we want to talk about the boots? So you know, it's really. I mean, if you go into details, this collection is a standout. It was recognized, and I hope it's going to do well because Paul is a lovely person and he deserves to succeed.
Yeah, I hope so. But I think it is really interesting to see this, and then with the next section we're going to talk about, because we're saying this might be aimed at an older clientele. Yet it's this casting in this. I mean, if you look at lots of the models, they have the same cheekbone structure, which I know is a big thing on models, but it was extreme. They were all interchangeable pretty much, and it was a bit sad.
You don't even notice the casting here.
It wasn't striking.
The product. It's more diverse than you think if you count, but it's not. The clothes stand out.
Yeah.
But yet, if you look at the makeup, it's modern and simple and.
It means barely there. As far as I could, it didn't catch.
Yeah, exactly, it didn't catch. But so you were mentioning someone younger. I know you never think about Milan as launching new talent, and I must say there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And Milan was very nostalgic this year, looking back in the 80s, and a little bit boring. However, among the new, they are not that new, by the way, the young designers in Milan, they've been around for 5-6 years. But anyway, one that for me stands out every year more is Erika Cavallini.
Yes.
And I think she presented a collection that was rather simple, very her. I mean, if you, I don't know, I don't think you follow Erika, but it's quite honest with what she does, and I thought it was probably one of her best to date. And for me, this was the best of young Milan. It's not that young, I mean, but young Milan. What do you
So you
think?
put me onto it when you said who we
Yes.
might be talking about. So I, again, was coming with a fresh slate and didn't do any, before I looked at the collection, didn't
That's
do
what
any
I
research
wanted,
into her. It's striking. It's absolutely, you know, the suiting is so incredible. And the casting doesn't feel kind of PR related to make a statement. It just feels right. And the casting is completely striking. And the fabrications are incredible. I mean, they look reasonably just different bits of fabric tacked together, but actually the way, I was trying to find some Instagrams of it, and the way that they move and where they are placed and where they're not, and the bits that stand and the bits that move, it's just beautiful.
It's beautiful,
really strong. Certain pieces I wasn't convinced by, like that leather jumpsuit looked a bit clunky and all of that, but as overall, as a proposition...
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the leather jumpsuit, because I also think that she still has this problem sometimes of thinking that she needs the trendy bit in there to be more noticeable, and you're right, it's not her best.
Yeah, but do you think that being, you know, working in Milan, you need to try and show some leathercraft to be taken seriously there? Or
It's a good question. I never thought about that. And
I mean, also, there's no bags here, you know, in Milan. Oh, actually, no, that's a lie. I can see some coming up.
But she's a ready-to-wear designer.
Yeah, but you know, it's not the normal, you know, Milan, normally you have a bag with every look, or you have at least, you know, you have a commercial.
Leather is very important in Italy, but I never thought about the fact that they have to throw in some leather. I mean, this is obviously more a ready-to-wear collection than an accessories collection, and that's what Erika, I mean, if you go, there is a store in Westbourne Grove that sells Cavallini. They're not selling bags or shoes, they're selling her jackets of last summer season. Last summer collection was good. It was a bit safari. It was interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if she threw in the leather for that, but it's true, it's not her strong.
This last look, I mean, also as a comment, not just on the clothes, but on catwalk photography, there's something about it. If we can scroll down to the last look, the way that, I mean, it's the styling, the way her arm's falling out, and just where her foot is, there's something so poetic and slightly sad, but gorgeous and beautiful in the way that she looks.
And also,
that last
the
look
woman, she's not a little girl.
Yeah. She's not terrified and where am I?
No, but
she's strong, and there's something deeply, you know, kind of moving in that image, and I still can't put my finger on it. I've been looking at it, coming back to it for 2 weeks since I've been, you know, found out about Erika, and there's something so strong in that image, and in that way that that's styled, and you know, I can't work out what it is. There's such a story behind her, and I really want to email Erika and find out what it is, what story. You know,
she's a mature designer. She's a designer. I think she graduated about 10 years ago. She has been a little bit under the radar because, you know, we were discussing, you and I, when we were doing New York, you know, about people that haven't crossed the pond yet. And that's a little bit the same story about Italy, you know. And in Milan, it's Prada and Gucci and Versace and which, by the way, we haven't mentioned yet. Maybe we will manage to do a whole head-to-head, Milan head-to-head without mentioning them. But anyway, and I think Erika Cavallini deserves a mention because she's improving. I don't know how her business is doing. I have no idea. But her work is interesting. And it brings some fresh air to Milan.
Yeah, it's exciting to see something coming from Milan. It's something that, in the 5 years I've been truly following fashion, I can't think. There's been obviously rejuvenations of houses and bringing younger people up into those, but actually young brands from Milan are so hard to come by. And when you do, I think they feel so pressured into doing a leather piece and into fitting into everyone's
to
idea
be fashionable
of
yet
Milan.
commercial, you know. It's very hard in Milan to stand out with something, and I mean, I can't go without mentioning, but I think the magic of Gucci this season more than ever. It was attacked by other classics, i.e. Mr. Armani, but I think what he did was magic, because it's great clothes in a set that is modern, that makes you think, that provokes reaction, like great art. Great art provokes reaction.
Yeah. It's fantasy. You could see all. I want this to be a full exhibition somewhere where you can go and see every look in situ. You know, walking around, you know, and it's on for 6 months, and everyone can go visit
You can, because if you go into a Gucci store, it's exactly that. No, it's in a Gucci store, the fashion show is there. They give you some more commercial, more wearable pieces, but that are as beautiful, and then they give you the whole catwalk, and you style it the way you want.
Yeah.
That's great merchandising.
Just give the people what they want. Well, I mean, that's what Gucci is. It's give the people what they want. Give them the chance to do it themselves. I mean, you can take any part of this and wear it with pretty much anything else. I mean, you might look bonkers doing it, but that's also been made okay.
Because bonkers okay.
You know.
It's
just... God, you could write a dissertation on this collection. I mean, literally, there's so much in it, and not in an overwhelming way, just in a way that, like, you could write a dissertation on one look, and there's so much to say. There's so many layers of understanding that
layers is the word. Yeah. But also layers of understanding, because when you see this show with the baby dragon and the head that everybody mentioned, so I really would not go into that again. Everybody read about that, had their idea, but the thing that you come out with is that, was that silly or was that clever?
Yeah.
And then you go home and think, and then you want to know what other thing, because you can't make up your mind, and that's what I think is fascinating. And again, you know, I compare with contemporary art that, I mean, there's this film, The Square, right now that everybody has to see, which is exactly about that, where, you know, it says, where is the limit about provoking and provocation and art? And I think Alessandro does that incredibly well. But then you go into a store and you can actually buy clothes.
Yeah,
you can buy very good clothes that can be extremely expensive and extremely accessible. And that's what a good brand is. But people will accuse me to be a little bit too Gucci-oriented, but I think it's important to discuss, because it's a phenomenon right now in Milan.
Yeah, I mean, it totally is. I mean, I was reading about Armani, and it was saying...
And he's attacked to this?
Well, I was actually reading something else which made me think possibly why he attacked, that until 2017, he was the second biggest selling brand.
Gucci or Armani?
Armani was, until 2017.
And
we
Gucci
all know that Gucci in 2017 had its year, had its revival. And I thought, is that bitterness that he's attacking this collection?
Yeah, I think it's a bit sad, because, I mean, we had discussed this before, you and I, off camera, but Armani's been discussed by everybody as like, it's boring, always the same. This season, he did his pinks and whatever. But Armani is still one of the biggest brands for ready-to-wear, because it doesn't do many accessories, so he really sells a lot of clothes. And so I always said there must be something right there.
Yeah.
The problem, I think, when you are 83 or 4 and still standing and still selling and still making money, you do not need to bitterly attack something that you just probably don't understand because you don't want to.
Yeah.
Because you certainly
and he doesn't need to, and they're not vying for customers, I don't believe.
That's not the collection of Armani, I think.
I mean, well, you know, there's so many.
That's probably
Emporio,
yeah.
Yeah, and it is hard as someone coming in, you know, someone coming into...
I recognize a little pink cape, which is quite good. But I mean, just don't, do not. Because also today the world is on that side. And so you will be coming out losing, you know. Yeah, it's a happy, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with this, but it's Armani, doing Armani.
You know what you want, you know what you want, you know what you get, and it has its clientele. And I don't believe that Gucci and Armani are vying for customers and kind of in this bitter battle.
No,
so it didn't feel necessary. However, I mean, Armani has that name, I think, especially to people who don't work in the industry and don't study fashion seasonally, of Italian elegance and of, you know, this kind of what it was in the 80s to people in fashion. You know, it has, I imagine, and when I speak to friends, you know, if they were going to go get a tailor-made suit, if they could, you know, you can't go to Savile Row, but they could go somewhere. They might go to Armani because it's
really
kind of. I think because
it's funny you're saying that, because I always say when I was your age, Armani was the brand that we wanted to save for our first interview or our first big job, you know, and I think. I mean, it's still around, but I don't think that your girlfriends,
I'm talking more about
they're probably aspiring to Craig Green, no?
I mean, a certain type of friend, but I mean, friends who don't follow fashion, I think it's hammered in that Armani is the place
it's like
to get Italian suiting.
It's a certainty. It's safe.
But it's just because that's what you already believe. It's kind of, you know, it's one of the brands that's most visible on the high street. Even though it's not a high street brand, you know, if you walk down, there's so many shops of it, there's so many diffusion lines.
It's huge.
There's so much stuff of it. It's pretty easy to believe that this is the best brand because it has the most amount of shops.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're not following fashion, that, you know, its brand history is presented on the streets because there's so many of them, and the
power of the advertising. It's like Chanel.
That huge eagle on Old Compton Street. You know.
Yeah, the eagle is Emporio, but that's where Armani was quite smart because people think they're wearing Armani. Emporio is at different level, but yes, I mean that huge eagle is everywhere. Well, that was it for Milan, and see you next season.
See you next season.
Bye bye.